On July 17, 1942, World War II had taken a terrible form. There was a fierce tussle going on between the world's biggest powers, and their intentions to prove themselves superior had brought the whole world on the path of destruction. Hitler's Nazi army had badly devastated almost the entire Western Europe, and now his army had started surrounding the Soviet Union to capture Eastern Europe. Here Hitler's eyes were on the territories full of crude oil and Stalingrad. Stalingrad was the city of the Soviet Union, which was named after its dictator Joseph Stalin, and by capturing it, Hitler wanted to attack Stalin's pride and natural resources simultaneously, but Stalin was also not one to retreat. He had also associated the Battle of Stalingrad with his honor, to defend which he was ready to do anything. After this, the Soviet and German armies clashed with each other, rivers of blood started flowing, there was a dance of death all around. This fierce war continued for many months, and the German Air Force Stalingrad was completely ruined. Hitler was celebrating the initial success, but the real game was yet to come. As soon as the winter season arrived, the game completely turned. The cold that froze the human body was going to prove to be the last nail in the Nazis' coffin. Stalin took advantage of the winter, gathered his army and started crushing the Nazi army with full force. This time, the Nazi army started losing ground due to the speed of the Soviets, and the Soviet Red Army started chasing the Nazi army. In this battle that lasted for about 7 months, Stalingrad was completely ruined. Its land became a graveyard of corpses, and about 19 lakh soldiers were killed from both sides, which made it the world's bloodiest battle. So let's know the story of this bloody war between the two most cruel dictators of the world. How Hitler's army, which was winning in the beginning, was forced to lose. After all, what was that strategy of Stalin that turned a losing battle into a victory, and how Hitler's plan to win Stalingrad became the reason for his defeat in World War II. 1941 Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, his long-awaited invasion of the Soviet Union. Summer 1942, just 1 year after the defeat of the Soviet Union was defeated by the Soviet Union. After the end of World War I, Germany was declared a war guillotine by the Allied powers and was divided into pieces through the Treaty of Versailles. The colonies under its control were taken away, and a huge fine of $5 billion was also imposed on it as war indemnity. Due to this, Germany was surrounded by problems like unemployment and starvation. The Weimar Republic had signed this treaty, so the people of Germany started blaming the government for their bad conditions. Hitler's name was also included among those anti-government people. Hitler was a soldier of the German army in World War I, who took the risk of sending important messages to his army amidst enemy shelling. During this period, he was also badly injured once. Stories of his bravery and patriotism were spread all over Germany, and he was honored by giving him the Iron Cross saluting his bravery. Later, he left the army and joined the German Workers' Party in 1919, which he later converted into the Nazi Party according to his ideology and made it a means to reach the power of Germany. He made the German people, who were already in trouble, his followers by showing them big dreams one after the other. Its effect was also seen in the voting held in 1932, in which his party became the party with the highest number of votes. Hitler's popularity was increasing day by day, seeing which German President Paul van den Berg made him the Chancellor of Germany in January 1933. After this, adopting the strategy of Song Dong Dan Bed, he took all the power of Germany in his hands and started making the country dance to his tunes like a puppet. Now Hitler had the power of Germany in his hands, but he did not have money to run it, so he started a war against the country. He made many economic changes and changed the foreign strategy and took Germany out of the League of Nations formed to save the world from future war. After this, he took another big step and broke the Treaty of Versailles on March 7, 1936 and took control of Rhineland. At that time, the Soviet Union was also very powerful in Europe, which Germany hated. Hitler had started anti-Soviet propaganda in Germany since becoming Chancellor in 1933. After taking power in Germany, he further spread the anti-Soviet approach. Japan also considered the Soviet Union a big threat to itself. Therefore, Germany signed the Anti-Comintern Pact first with Japan and then with Italy, the purpose of which was to weaken all communist forces including the Soviet Union. During this, Hitler's aim was not only to get back the territories lost by Germany after World War I, but he also wanted to expand Germany. For this, his Nazi army gave a new strength to Germany by occupying many areas of Austria and then Czechoslovakia. Germany's economic strength was strengthened by Hitler's efforts. The conditions had improved a lot and the lives of the people here were getting back on track, but Germany's growing power and immense fame had made Hitler's dreams even bigger. To fulfill this, he was moving ahead with the aim of taking the whole of Europe in his fist and establishing German superiority in the whole world. He now wanted to capture his neighboring country Poland, but he was afraid that apart from the Western powers like Britain and France, the Soviets might also create obstacles in his work. It was difficult for him to capture the Soviet Union in Eastern Europe and countries like Britain and France in Western Europe at the same time. Therefore, Hitler very cleverly surprised the whole world by signing the German-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact with the Soviets in August 1939. Under this pact, Germany and the Soviet Union decided that they would not target each other's areas for 10 years. Under the cover of this pact, Germany and the Soviet Union had made a secret plan to divide Poland among themselves. Also, Hitler took millions of dollars from the Soviets by stopping them from going with Britain and France. Germany had also offered to buy tons of grain and oil. Soviet Union was also benefiting a lot from this pact, so dictator Stalin was also coordinating with Germany. However, due to this pact, Hitler had angered his two close allies Japan and Italy. Japan even broke the Anti-Comintern Pact with Germany due to this reason, but it did not matter to the opportunist Hitler because he was ready to sacrifice anyone for his dream of conquering Europe. Just a month after bringing Soviet to his side, Hitler attacked Poland on September 1, 1939. 2 days later, Britain and France started fighting on behalf of Poland against this German invasion, and from here World War II started. A few days later, Soviet Union also attacked Poland from the eastern side. Germany captured western Poland within just a month, while eastern Poland soon came under Soviet control. Germany did not stop here. On May 10, 1940, it attacked Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg and France simultaneously, where Nazi army captured Luxembourg. While Germany wins on the very first day, it forces Netherlands to surrender by May 15 and Belgium by May 28. After this, Germany targets France and captures many parts of it including the capital Paris. After this, Germany also starts heavy bombing on Britain. In return, Britain also starts bombing Germany. At that time, Britain had radar technology with which it could track German aircraft from a long distance and attack them before they enter its border. In the war that continued for many months, Britain's Royal Air Force shot down 1650 German aircraft and caused heavy damage to the German Air Force Luftwaffe. On the other hand, the German Navy also did not get any special success, due to which Hitler was forced to change his war strategy. In such a situation, Hitler once again remembered his old friends and on September 27, 1940, he signed the Tripartite Pact with Italy and Japan and created an Axis power. 2 months later, Hungary, Romania and Slovakia also joined the Axis power. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union also strengthened its army. Stalin was busy in building the Baltic nation base, and meanwhile he had captured the Baltic nation base Arabia, Naden Bukovina and Finland. Stalin's growing ambitions had worried Hitler. He feared that the more powerful the Soviet Union would become, the more challenges it would face in the future. His worries grew further when he saw that the Soviet Union and Britain had started talking to each other against accession power. Troubled by Germany's continuous attacks, Britain was also seeking help from America for its security, due to which American President Franklin D. Roosevelt had given weapons and economic assistance to Britain under the Land-Lease Act. Seeing the Soviet America and Britain going to one side, Hitler felt surrounded on two fronts in Europe. Due to continuous military campaigns in Western Europe, Germany's oil had reduced considerably and it needed more and more oil to continue the war for a long time. The Soviet Union had helped Germany by giving some resources after the Non-Aggression Pact, but now the situation was such that not only had he lost confidence in getting oil from the Soviet Union in the future, he also felt that the Soviet Union at any moment Germany can join hands with Britain against him. Ever since the Soviet Union's army captured the Baltic states, Bessarabia and northern Bukovina and reached close to the Roman oil fields on which Germany was heavily dependent, Hitler had started suspecting Stalin's intentions even more. Now he had started feeling that he cannot wait for the complete victory of Western Europe to deal with the Soviet Union. Hitler had seen the Soviet Union as his biggest enemy from the very beginning. He used to claim his racial and ideological superiority over the people of the Soviet Union. He had made it common among his army and the people of his country that the German people are above other civilizations and they have the right to rule the whole of Europe. Hitler always wanted Germany to expand towards the east so that there is more living space for his people. Apart from this, Hitler had been eyeing the huge oil reserves present in the Caucasus region of the Soviet Union for a long time. By seizing this oil reserve, he could not only use it for his army but by doing so, the Soviet Union would also get a chance to win. Seeing all these reasons, Hitler broke the Non-Aggression Pact in June 1941 and started Operation Barbarossa against the Soviet Union. To capture the Soviet Union, Hitler divided his army into three parts and made a strategy to fight on three fronts. In this way, his army got divided into Army Group North, Army Group Center and Army Group South. Army Group North was going to march towards Leningrad, Army Group Center towards Moscow and Army Group South towards Ukraine and Caucasus. Hitler ordered his army to first capture the North Soviet states so that the entire attention of the Soviet Red Army would be focused towards the north and he could easily capture the south of the Soviet Union, which is full of natural resources. In all this, Germany also got the support of the armies of Romania and Finland. After this, Germany's Army Group North attacked the Soviet Union from the north. Army Group North first moved forward capturing the Baltic states and in a few days, with the help of the Finnish army, it surrounded many cities of the Soviet Union, including Leningrad, which almost destroyed the North Soviet Union. During this period, the Nazi army was adopting the strategy of blitzkrieg. Through this Werfen tactic, the Nazi army used to attack the enemy with surprise at lightning speed, due to which the enemy forces did not even get a chance to recover. Under this strategy, the Nazi army had defeated many Western European countries including France in just 6 weeks, so it had full confidence in its strategy. Through this blitzkrieg strategy, after Army Group North, Army Group South attacks Soviet Ukraine from Poland and within a few days captures Kiev, Kharkov and Crimea. The Germans had so far penetrated 650 kilometers inside the Soviet Union and from here the capital Moscow was only 320 kilometers away. Army Group Center takes control of small ANS and starts moving forward with the intention of conquering Moscow on the 2nd of October. With the continuous victories, Hitler felt that he would soon capture Moscow, but Stalin had made a different kind of planning for this war. He wanted the Nazi army to get tired before reaching Moscow and to waste its war resources. Stalin knew that the German army would not be able to fight for long in the bone-chilling cold of Russia, so his Red Army was already stationed in Moscow in large numbers. The Red Army under Soviet commander Georgy Zhukovsky used to destroy its own fields, bridges and factories while retreating. Even if they suffered losses in this way, they did not want to let their resources fall into the hands of the German soldiers. Also, the movement of the German soldiers would slow down and there would be great difficulty in supplying logistics to the German army. Its effect was also seen as the Nazi army reached closer to Mao. The problems of logistics and supply lines started increasing for it. Due to heavy snowfall, the soil also became wet, due to which not only the speed of German tanks and vehicles slowed down, but they were also covered with sheets of snow. After this, to completely destroy the tired and exhausted Nazi army, the Soviet army started countering on December 5, 1941. The German army neither had the experience of fighting in the harsh winter or did it have any experience of fighting. There was a way to save ourselves from this. Due to bad weather, the German Air Force was also failing to send reinforcements to its army. Even though America had not directly joined the war till then, it was helping the Allied powers by giving its resources under the Land-Lease program. After the German invasion, the Soviet Union had become a part of the official elite powers. Therefore, the Soviets were also getting large quantities of American tanks, ammunition and other essential goods from America. The help of America boosted the morale of the Soviet soldiers and the tired Nazi army did not feel deterred. The Nazi army gradually started losing to the Red Army on the Moscow front. The havoc of cold was also raining badly on the German soldiers, due to which while lakhs of German soldiers were killed by the Soviet counter, millions of German soldiers lost their lives due to cold. In this way, Germany lost about 1/3 of its soldiers in Operation Barbarossa, due to which Hitler failed to win Moscow and his Operation Barbarossa failed. Hitler may have lost in Moscow, but his Army Group South was still under the control of the Soviets. The Nazis had occupied many important locations of the country, one of them was Kharkov, which was captured by the German army in October 1941. To regain Kharkov, Stalin launched a big surprise attack on Kharkov in May 1942 and from there the Second Battle of Kharkov began. The Red Army did get some success in the beginning with this surprise attack, but after a few days Germany regained its composure and started Operation Friedrichshain, causing heavy damage to the Red Army. The Nazi army scattered the Red Army and in this battle alone the Soviets suffered 280,000 casualties. Apart from this, 1,000 Soviet tanks were destroyed in this battle and 57,000 were killed. June 1942 arrived, the winter season was over. Hitler's morale was high after his victory in the Seventh Soviet Union. Since the Caucasus was the most important for the Nazi army because of its oil reserves, Hitler changed his strategy a little this time. To capture the Caucasus, Hitler ordered his army to start Operation Case Blue. The operation started on June 28, 1942 and in the initial days, the German army also registered some victories, but on July 9, Hitler suddenly changed the plan and now he ordered to capture both Stalingrad and Caucasus together. Stalingrad was a major industrial city of the Soviet Union spread over about 50 kilometers on the banks of the Volga River, which was strategically very important for the Soviets. There were big factories here where armaments used in the war were produced. Seeing the importance of this place, Stalin named it Stalingrad after himself. If Hitler captured this city and the Volga River, the connection of the Red region with other parts of the Soviet Union would break and the oil-rich areas would come under German control. Hitler was sure that if the Nazi army captured Stalingrad, the morale of the Red Army would fall significantly. It would also be a personal and propaganda victory for Hitler, after which he would have been able to easily defeat the Red Soviet Union. Because of this, on July 9, Hitler divided Army Group South into two parts and ordered them to attack Stalingrad and Caucasus simultaneously. Many of Hitler's own commanders were not happy with this plan of Hitler. According to them, the German army would have got maximum benefit from the strategy of one target at a time, but there was no place for any different opinion in Hitler's dictatorial tendencies. Hitler had to win the war as soon as possible, so following his order, the Nazi army was divided into two parts, Army Group A and Army Group B. Army Group A headed by Field Marshal Mal Wilhelm List headed towards Stalingrad under the leadership of the Caucasian Forest Beaches. Group B consisted of Germany's 4th Panzer Army and 6th Army. The 6th Army of 330,000 soldiers headed towards Stalingrad under the leadership of General Friedrich Paulus was advancing towards Caucasus. Army Group A started getting initial success in Caucasus. It first captured Rus von Don, which was an important route to enter deep into the Caucasus region. By winning it, Army Group A got a strong foothold. After getting the strategic base, the German army easily captured the oil fields of Maykop. However, before retreating, the Soviet Red Army destroyed the oil wells present here, due to which the Germans could not get any benefit from this victory of Maykop. To capture the Soviet Union, Hitler had also added a total of 52 divisions of the countries included in the Axis power, Italy, Hungary, Spain, Rome and Slovakia, to his army. This increased the number of soldiers in the German army, but this non-German division was not skilled in Württemberg tactics like the Nazis. Meanwhile, Stalin was also busy preparing for Summer Württemberg. Before the German attack on Stalingrad, he sent the grain stores and dairy animals present there to other parts of the country, but ordered the common citizens to stay in Stalingrad. His strict order was that no civilian should leave the city and everyone should help the army of their country against the German army. During this, Stalin did not spare even the women and children and used them to reduce the speed of the German army and its tanks. Stalin, seeing Germany going on the offensive towards the Soviet Union, had formed 3 special female flying units, 586 Fighter Regiment, 587 Heavy Bomber Regiment and 588 Night Bomber Regiment, out of which 588 Night Bomber Regiment was the most powerful and also had a female tank crew who were to participate in the ground war against the German army with their tanks. Apart from this, Stalin recruited men in large numbers in the army and issued Order No. 227, which had a strict order of not one step back. Under this order, if any Red Army soldier tried to leave the war and run away, he was instructed to be shot by his own comrades. Just as Hitler was desperate to capture Stalingrad, Stalin was also ready to do anything to defend it. Stalingrad had become a question of ego for both the dictators. By August 1942, while the German army was moving forward capturing the places of Stalingrad at the ground level, the German Air Force also came in support of the army and started air attacks here. On that day, the German Air Force carried out more than 1,600 air raids and dropped 1,000 tons of bombs on Stalingrad. In this action of the German Air Force, about 40,000 Soviet citizens were killed in just 1 week. Between the 16th and the 25th of September, in just 9 days, Germany carried out a total of 9,746 air raids. The entire infrastructure of the city was destroyed due to continuous bombings and in a few days, Stalingrad was left with nothing but ruined armies and the screams of dying people. During this time, the Nazi army had become so ruthless and cruel that it would torture the surrendered Soviet soldiers in dark rooms and kill them by keeping them hungry for several days. The way the Nazi army was moving ahead without any hindrance, it seemed that the Soviet army had already accepted defeat. In the next few days, the Nazi army captured many big tractor factories here. The German army dominated this city for about 2 months, which captured 90% of Stalingrad's parts by October. Hitler was celebrating this in Munich city of Germany and was shouting only one thing, that the entire Stalingrad would be captured by the German army any moment, but this celebration was going to prove to be the biggest mistake of his life, because even now 10% of this city was yet to be captured. He did not pay attention to the fact that how difficult it would be for him to win these 10% parts. He had now started underestimating the strength of the Soviet army and Stalin's strategy. Gradually, his confidence of victory had turned into his ego, which was going to destroy him later. Since Stalingrad was in ruins, now the Nazi army also started facing difficulty in moving fast here. During this time, while the slow movement of the Nazi army was becoming a problem for the German commanders, he was creating a big problem for himself. The German commanders were increasing the dreaded Nazi army to win the forward areas, but they had left the security of the won areas to the weak Italian and Roman divisions. All this information Soviet intelligence was also getting to know about this, which they were using in further planning. Seeing the decline in the speed of the German army, Stalin also started revealing his cards and started Operation Uranus to surround the German army. Stalin gave the responsibility of leading the army to his trusted general Georgy Zhukovsky. He started a massive counter-offensive in which 5 lakh soldiers, 900 tanks and 1,400 aircraft were involved. In the Battle of Stalingrad, the commander of the 62nd Army of the Soviet Army, General Vasily Chukov, played the most important role. He had only one thing to say to his soldiers, that no matter what happens, they should not retreat. When he was given the responsibility of defending Stalingrad, he had promised the Soviet High Command that he would either defend Stalingrad at any cost or sacrifice himself and his entire army while defending it. Vasily Chukov created a war strategy called hugging the enemy to defeat the Germans, under which first the enemy army would be surrounded from all sides and then the enemy's extremely strong army would be surrounded. The war was fought by getting close. Under the strategy of hugging the enemy, the Soviet Red Army started fighting the war by coming very close to the German army. The German command was stunned to see the counter-attack of the Soviet army. The Soviet counter was so strong that within 3 days more than 2 lakh German soldiers were surrounded. Seeing the army on the back foot, the German Air Force also got stuck in a dilemma. In such a situation, even if they wanted, they were not able to support their army, because if they bombed, the German army would also be killed in large numbers due to being very close to the Soviet army. While the Soviet male soldiers were surrounding them, the female military regiments were also handling the front. On one hand, the women's tank crew was secretly attacking the enemy's artillery and infantry, while on the other hand, the 588 Night Bomber Regiment of women had stunned the Germans with air attacks. These women used to drop bombs on the German soldiers at night. The German soldiers used to call them night witches, who would disturb their sleep and tire them mentally. During this Battle of Stalingrad, the night witches flew thousands of sorties and killed the enemy. While these women had given a tough time to the German army at night, Soviet snipers had made their condition worse during the day. The Red Army had placed their men on the ruins of Stalingrad, who were hiding and targeting the Nazi army one by one. If any German soldier passed through any street, any road or any intersection of Stalingrad, he would be shot immediately. Soviet snipers were so effective that they had earned a different reputation. A Soviet sniper Vasily Zaitsev had single-handedly killed 225 German soldiers. In the defense of Stalingrad, apart from the Soviet forces, the civilians there were also thrown into the fight. They were sent without weapons in front of the German army equipped with armored tanks and guns. The Nazi army under the command of Friedrich Paulus was badly trapped due to attacks from all sides. Due to not getting help from the Air Force and other military units, the German soldiers were facing shortage of food, fuel and ammunition. The Red Army was facing shortage of resources and was rapidly pushing the Nazi army back. The Soviets had made this war of Stalingrad a cat-and-mouse game with their excellent warfare tactics. With the hugging the enemy technique, the Soviet soldiers were not allowing the German soldiers to stand on any front. However, in the meantime, the 71st Infantry Division of the German Army had reached the city center while countering the Soviets. When Stalin came to know about this, he became furious. It was a battle of honor for him, for which he was ready to do anything. He immediately sent his 13th Guards Division to stop this division of the German army. After this, the German army was rapidly pushed back from there and the Soviets took the center back under their control. Apart from this, the Soviets also targeted the German army in the Don and Chur Rivers region through Operation Little Saturn in December. The 24th Tank Corps of the Red Army attacked the German Air Force stationed at Tatsinskaya Airfield, which was supplying the German 6th Army. The Soviet tanks destroyed the planes. They started destroying the planes which were taking off late. The cannons reduced them to ashes and the airfield came under the control of the Soviets. This war continued for many months. Both the armies were not ready to retreat. The psychological stress was at its peak on both sides. There was a lot of pressure from their dictators to win this battle. About 13,000 Soviet soldiers were killed by their own army men because they were either running away or trying to run away or they had seen the soldiers running away or talking about running away but did not report to the commanders. The condition of the German soldiers had reached the verge of getting worse. Before starting this battle, their commanders had estimated that they would win Stalingrad within 1 to 1.5 months. However, they had been here for many months and instead of winning, their every attack was failing. The month of January had arrived and heavy snowfall had started in Stalingrad. The temperature had reached close to -30 degrees Celsius. In such cold, the German, Italian and Roman soldiers had no choice but to fight. They had no experience and neither did they have warm clothes to protect themselves from the cold. These armies were already running out of reserve fuel and food, so they were dying of hunger. Friedrich Paulus had demanded reinforcements and food from Hitler many times, but they were getting nothing except assurances. This had started demoralizing the German soldiers and they were on the verge of a big defeat, losing their faith. The Nazi army that had once captured the Red Army was now itself being taken captive. During the operation, the Red Army saw their dead comrades in many buildings who were taken captive and tortured badly. That is why they were also killing Nazi soldiers by torturing them to take revenge for their comrades. Despite such bad conditions, Hitler was ordering Friedrich Paulus to stand firm on the battlefield. When he felt that his army might surrender, he lured Friedrich Paulus with a promotion, but now the situation had gone out of control. On January 31, 1943, Friedrich Paulus decided to surrender to the Red Army. After the consent of 22 general comrades, on February 2, 1943, 91,000 German soldiers surrendered to the Red Army. In the world's deadliest battle, more than 8 lakh soldiers of Germany and Axis powers lost their lives, while during this time 11 lakh Soviet soldiers also lost their lives. This war was so terrible, cruel and scary that during this time about 40,000 civilians of the Soviet Union were also killed. Later, the Soviets made the lives of 91,000 German soldiers who were captured hell. The condition of the Nazi army was made so bad that after the World War ended, only 5,000 to 6,000 soldiers were able to return to Germany from the Soviet Union. This war proved to be the biggest mistake of Hitler's life. The dream of winning the Soviet Union left him nowhere. If Hitler had not attacked Stalingrad, then perhaps the results of the World War would have been different and Hitler would have won the World War.